Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, then this is the show for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power to intimacy to create the life you love or love the life you create. Now here's your host, Dr. April, and her co-host, Coach K.
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. Well, today we are doing something special. Hey, Coach Kate. I'm not sure if she can hear me. There you go. Hey, Coach Kate, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Wonderful. Yes. And I'm so excited about today's topic because it is something that is just blowing up on social media. And it happens, all the time, but spring break is just the time that these things happen. And I'm talking about sneaky links. And if you're like, Dr. April, I don't know what sneaky links is. What is that? Well, this is the show you need to definitely listen to. So if you're on there, thank you guys for following us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Yes, and on this show, we also, before I get into the topic, we also highlight a specific charity of the month, and the charity this month is Save Children Coalition, which is a great organization. April's a month of celebrating children, of course, and so this coalition helps to protect children, families, and community. And their website is www.sccfl.org. All right. So, Coach Kate, are we ready to get into this topic of spring break sneaky links?
I think we are definitely ready.
Okay. So if people are out there saying, what is it? What is it? Since you're a little bit younger than I am, I'm going to let you explain it first.
So sneaky link, and I learned this new age term. It has progressed in its name. Way back when it was the side piece, if you think of that song from way back, and then it evolved into friends with benefits. Then we got into, thanks to TLC, creeping. Creeping. So now we are at the newest term, which is sneaky link, which is someone you just really call during those booty call hours. So
booty
when
call
you just
back
need
in
to
my
get
day.
a quick fix. Yep.
Yes.
Oh yeah, booty call that was part of the evolution. So that's just who you call when you just need a quick fix. You sometimes you converse, sometimes you didn't, but outside of that, you got what you needed to get, and you went home or you sent your sneaky link home. So that's what we're talking about today.
Yes. And so sneaky link is, and the reason why we're talking about it is because, one, I want to say that if this is happening, if you're involved in a sneaky link, the main thing, one of the things that we need to talk about is, of course, to be safe. Because there's so many STDs out there, and it's really important to be safe.
Well, and in addition to the STDs and STIs that are out there, I think a lot more mental illness is coming into play, and people's emotions get involved, and that is very, very dangerous. So it can be a dangerous game in the sneaky link world in today's society.
Right. And when you talk about mental health, we're talking about mental health or even that on both sides.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And so for if you find out that your partner has been out having, random sex, sometimes for the partner, that doesn't know, it becomes kind of like betrayal, depression. Was I not good enough? Why is this person out there doing X, Y, or Z? They many times don't even, how can I put it, lose trust.
That is definitely something that can go away. And they lose trust within themselves as well as with their partner. And lack of trust can cause so many additional, another topic for another day, but so many additional problems and issues.
Right. And if you're have a partner that is doing the sneaky link, and you catch them once, many times these people become investigators. You know what I'm saying? Yes. He or she cheated on me once, and then you're going to investigate. Then you find out they cheated twice, and you investigate, and that solely consumes you. That's right. All you. Yes.
You go down the rabbit hole of just betrayal, and then you start recruiting your friends into it, and then you start recruiting your family, and then their family, and then you just got a mess.
Right. And I just say, it's best to just stop it. If that is happening take care of you. Yes. Because it doesn't matter if the person is doing a sneaky link at Hotel 6 or Hotel 12. Yeah. It's just, it broke your, because in every relationship, there is a bond or a contract that maybe people don't talk about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like an unwritten rule of exclusivity.
Right.
But that also comes into play of, and you think that you wouldn't have to talk about this, what exclusivity looks like, what our relationship is supposed to be. I don't think that that's discussed enough in current relationships, where people do go out and, spring break comes around and they're like, hey, I'm going to go hang out with the fellas. I'm going to go hang out with the girls. They end up at a party, strip club, some things happen. And it's like, well, we never really discussed what cheating is. Right. I only did it this one time. It wasn't anything. It was just at a party. So those conversations have to happen on the front end in a relationship.
Right. And and I'm glad you mentioned that, because sometimes people don't think they need to have that discussion, maybe when they're in their 20s, but this happens in couples who are in their 50s, 60s, 40s. Yes. Yeah. And if you're one who's like, well, I just get bored with having the same sexual partner, then you need to have that discussion. Yes, because open relationships an open relationship is totally different than cheating.
And sneaky links are associated more with the cheating piece than
right.
an open relationship. And granted, we're talking about someone who's in a relationship who has a sneaky link. But there are some people that are completely unattached and still they have sneaky links because it's someone that they don't want in their 9 to 5, call it that, persona. Right. And so maybe they have this this image to uphold. They may be a prominent something somewhere. And so they only call this person after hours so that they're not seen with them. Now, granted, they could be completely unattached, not in a relationship, but this person does not fit their statutes, their status. Right. And so they are the person that they creep with, or they're sneaky.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And a person, we've had quite a few over the years, people who, like you said, they're not in relationships, but they do a series of sneaky links. Maybe they started off young and they did a series. And then after a while, they come in because they're like, they truly cannot connect with anyone. Right. They're so used to going in and coming out, basically.
Literally.
That they just don't know how to be with a person for a while, to just sit and be totally present and having that emotional connection.
Yeah, that can be damaging long term if not addressed, if not recognized and addressed.
Right, right. And sneaky links, it's not, as I'm thinking about this, not making love to someone. It's just going in and going out, not connecting.
Yeah, the issue comes in when that one or the other party starts to create that bond that you know they weren't supposed to. And
Right,
usually it's known on the front end. Hey, I'm just here for the sex. That's it.
right,
But some people can't turn their emotions off. They may
right.
feel as though, and to be quite honest, when we're talking about this, there are a lot of people who would think, yeah, a lot of females, but there are a lot of males who find themselves falling into a place that they probably didn't even think that they would fall into. And it's because the chase comes into play.
Mm,
So then we go into a whole different level where they feel like, oh, you just come over here for sex. That's awesome. And then they leave. And so that may trigger something in them like, okay, well, this girl really is not checking for me. And
right.
so they fall into this infatuation with the other party versus
Hmm.
the woman.
Right. I think you bring a good comment up. It's because we're kind of now discussing sometimes when you have sex too early in a relationship where there's no connection, and how um, that can sometimes lead people. I mean, first it's great excitement, but then once that excitement is over, they have no foundation that they've built upon.
Right. And then it's like, where do you go from there? You know, we've come in and we've done all kinds of just nasty, freaky stuff. So where do we go from here? And you can't fathom that with now a partner, because of an image that you may uphold of your partner. When in actuality, you can have that in a relationship. You just have to open your mind to it. If you're in a committed relationship and you can role play and have your partner
Right,
be your sneaky link.
right, right. I like that idea. Yeah. And I know I've suggested to couples that sometimes, to spice thing up, whether they go to a hotel or restaurant and pretend that they first met for the first time. And like you said, that role playing is so exciting. It's so exciting, to have that connection. But for those single people out there listening and they're like, wow, maybe I need a sneaky link because I don't know, I'm getting out of a divorce, or I've been trying, and I haven't found anyone. And they're thinking, maybe this is something that I really, really need. What I want to say to you out there is if that's something that you really, really think, you've got to also think about the consequences of how it affects you as a person. As Coach K say in the beginning, it does affect your mental health. Um, in the sense of when you do something that you later on regret, guilt can really turn into depression and or anxiety.
And
Yeah,
anytime ever. I always say, I'm a former real cheater, so I completely understand this whole concept all the way around the block.
right, definitely. I don't think we heard you. I'm sorry, Coach K. You were breaking up.
I
Can you
might,
repeat that?
well, hopefully I don't go through this bad patchy area, but I let people know that I'm a former serial cheater, so I understand the concept all the way around. But it was being able to recognize and talk about it. There's some people who are just shameful, so they don't recognize it and work through it in order to have a meaningful relationship later. And it's that relationship with yourself, because you start to beat yourself up stops you from being able to come out of the sneaky link world. And then there's some people that are just happy to stay in that lane forever. And if that is you, I say do it, but just do it with purpose.
So, as you're saying, it's one who's been a former sneaky linker, and sometimes people I've become that because of trauma, but there's other people who that's what they like. And you're saying if you're in that process, or if you're doing sneaky link, do it with a purpose, or make sure you have a purpose.
Right. And that way you don't get lost in the realm of it or the idea of it.
Right. And I think that purpose, you need to also communicate with your partners.
Right.
That, hey, yes, this is what I'm doing, XYZ. Yeah. And if you're in the sense of a purpose, I'm trying to think, maybe Coach K, you can help us out. What are some purposes that people do sneaky links for?
One of the things you mentioned earlier was someone who may be in the midst of a divorce and they do have a desire to be sexually fulfilled,
Right.
But they do not have a desire to be emotionally connected. That may be a reason to. Someone who truly just does not want to be in a committed relationship because maybe they're in school and they're focusing on finishing a degree and they truly just want the sexual gratification. That could be a purpose. Or if it's someone who simply enjoys sex, but and they don't like the idea of just having the one person. Do it safely, but just do it on purpose.
Right. Well, that's a good thing that you mentioned. It's like people who are in these transition, or people who just enjoy sex, but do it with a purpose and communicate it in a way that your partners understand, and it's really good that they understand, because it's also a world, how can I put it? When you go behind people's back, people get very upset. People can get hurt, not only physically, but mentally in some aspect. Yes. So you really do need to communicate that.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yes. And so I'm glad that we had this conversation about sneaky links, because people are just, as it's happening and people are thinking about it. Some other things that I was just thinking about from a person who is in a relationship, and as you develop relationships, and as sneaky links may happen in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, we really have to think about how it just develops, and you just making other forms of relationships, because you just don't, if you've been hurt so much, you learn not to trust.
Right. And that breakdown in trust can start internally eating away at you and affecting relationships with your family. It can affect relationships that you try to develop at work,
right?
Professionally. It really does, and I don't think enough people understand or recognize there's sexuality and their sexual behaviors. It really oozes into every aspect of your life.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because how you have your sexual behavior does impact what we call your self-identity. And you may see yourself or the person you're hooking up in one way that will sometimes, if you're doing things that you regret, or someone else says XYZ about you, that impacts what you think about yourself. And from everything that I've said a lot always, is that relationship with self, you cannot divorce. You have to, or you should, love yourself and be able to look in yourself and say, hey, I trust myself.
And giving yourself grace if you do decide that that's the life that you want to live, not allowing anyone out, externally to make you feel shame.
Exactly. So I think what Coach K is saying, if you are doing sneaky links, if you've done it in the past, the other aspect is not live in shame. Because when you live in shame, it also, I work with a lot of older couples, and maybe they've done things in the past or whatever. So when they're older and they're in a healthy relationships, they have shame on their own body, shame on themselves because of what they did, maybe spring break time of back in the day. But shame is really going to prevent you from being your authentic self. And as this show is really about true intimacy, and sneaky links is not necessarily, it's not, in most cases, it's not an intimate connection. However, when you do that so much, you lose that true intimacy with yourself, with other people, and developing that.
Absolutely. If you think back on what was it? It was Bike Week and Freaknik. Those are the back in the day true booty call, sneaky link. That was Sneaky Link Central. You purposely went there with the intention of partying, hooking up, and forgetting that you have whatever you have going on at home. Fast forward, that's what? Those folks are in their late 30s, early 40s, maybe early
50s too. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did Freaknik. Yes. Yes.
And so that's when it's starting to show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And for those people who are out there, or just maybe they are returning back from spring break, or you're going onto spring break. I know as a college student, sometimes you think, oh my gosh, I have to experience X, Y, and Z. I have to drink so much, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do that to actually have fun in spring break. That's not necessarily true.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That pressure of everything that's happening around you can really, that's what shows up later in life as the shame. But if you went there and you did it because you wanted to, and that was the intent, then it's less likely to have that cloud of shame above you.
Right. And one of the things, since we're talking about spring break, that impacts that right there is alcohol. And of course, other drugs, ecstasy and all the other drugs that are out there. So if you're hooking up with a sneaky link and you're really intoxicated, you're really not giving consent.
Right.
I want to make that clear. Yeah, if you're hooking up with someone and you're completely drunk, or just your brain's not really there, you're not really making consent. And many times those are rape situations or sexual misconduct or a variety of things. So you got to keep that in mind. Just because you woke up and you're like, oh, I was with this person, I didn't know it, whatever, and that might have been a sneaky link. Honey, it wasn't.
I'm glad you brought that one up, because that's where you can fall into a deep depression from that. You thinking back like, maybe I shouldn't. Well, in actuality, didn't give that express consent to move forward and to continue.
Right.
Because you weren't in a mind space, a clear head mind space to do so.
Right. And if you're out there looking for someone, let's say to do the sneaky link and all that kind of stuff, and you meet someone who is maybe drunk, tipsy, whatever the case may be, they're not really giving you their consent. And I know that there's plenty of different apps that you can go and ask for sexual consent, because as a male or female, you've got to make sure the person is in their right mind, or you should make sure, especially when you meet someone just at a club or on the beach or whatever the case may be. You've got to, also protect yourself.
And you never know, someone who is intoxicated or under the influence of other substances, that could trigger an episode, a manic episode. It could be dangerous for you to fool around with someone who's under the influence of anything, because you don't know how their body may react to that drug or alcohol.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So you're putting yourself at risk, even going through that. So what I always say is make sure you get full consent. If you can't get consent, it's not meant to be. So definitely, yes. All right. Well, this has been a wonderful topic, and I'm glad we had this conversation on. Yes.
I am too. So if folks out there listening and you want to continue to have fun for spring break or whenever, sneaking links are just fine. Don't fall under if you're doing it with purpose, full consent. Have fun. Be safe.
Yes. Yes. And just to finish off what Coach K was stating, if you're out there and it's spring break and you're having sneaky links, have consent, be safe, use protection. Always communicate. It's very, very important. And if that's something that you want to do it with the purpose. If it's not something you want to do or you feel like you're going to feel guilty about it, don't do it. And if you're in a relationship, and let's say you're on spring break and you meet some wonderful person, and you want to get to know them further, but you're in a relationship already with someone else, you need to let that person know.
Yeah, take the word of Erykah Badu. Meet them next lifetime.
Meet them next lifetime. Exactly. All right, we're going to take a small break, and then we come back. We will finish this up, and we'll talk about what's coming up next. Okay, we'll be back.
A must-have for parents to be first-time parents, empty nesters, and parents all around. There are infinite ways to parent a child, but the trick is trying to figure out the best way that fits you and your child. Create strong connections during pregnancy, to not pulling your hair out during the terrible twos, navigating puberty, and having adult conversations with your adult children. The Intimacy of Parenthood covers it all, and it is now on Amazon, available in Kindle, Audible, and paperback.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. All right, so we're just wrapping up on that good topic of sneaky link. Yes. All right, so I'll just let you guys know what we have coming up next. So next week we are talking with Blair A.B. and intimacy with self, spirit, and loved ones. Then in 2 weeks, Coach K and I will be back on a whole different topic, spiritual intimacy, which I'm looking forward to. And then on April 27th, we're going to talk about how to create your dream relationship with Evan Mark. All right. Well, thank you, Coach K.
Thank you all for bearing with me and my spotty Wi-Fi.
Okay, that's okay. Well, we will see you next week, and take care. Safe travels.
All right.
Thank you. Bye. This has been the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. See you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back, where intimacy is real. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Dr. April Brown's 7-book series, Improving Intimacy, is now on Amazon. We'll see you next Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe.